you can do by going to worldstorytellingcafe.com and clicking on the little join story button. If you do that, you can come in here, you can be right here with Korky and me as we talk about the new book that we are launching really soon, and share some stories, do some live illustration, and well, you'll be able to ask us questions and we'll be able to hear you and answer them and fun stuff like that. So do please come and join us in here if you can. That's worldstorytellingcafe.com. There's no slashes or anything, just go straight there and then click on join story. Once you're here,
it's fine.
you can hear the voices of people arriving, can't you? Once you're here, if you can pop yourself on mute, folks, so that we can not lose all of the sound, that would be grand. And maybe as well, temporarily, just in case, it can be a good idea to switch your camera off, which I don't like saying, to be honest, because I love seeing all of the lovely smiles that we've got in front of us right now. But including Babasi and Andrea and Adela have just disappeared because they are doing that. They are switching their camera off for us. But welcome, folks, and I think it's about time we do some introductions. My name is Chip. I am a storyteller, and with me is none other than the illustrative Korky Paul. Hello, Korky.
Hi, everybody. I'm Korky Paul, illustrator of many books. I'm happy to be here tonight.
I wonder if anybody can come off mute for a second and mention a book that they may have seen you illustrating or illustrated. Anybody able to say where they've heard of Korky Paul? Some people are connected.
This little guy, this little lady.
Winnie the Witch.
Winnie the Witch. And what's her cat called?
Wilbur. It's called Wilbur.
There he is.
Good. There's Winnie and there's Wilbur. She's lost her hat though. Uh-oh. Winnie's lost her little hat. There you go. You'll pin it in. There you are. Oh, she's got her hat. That looks better. There you are.
And I'm loving the fact, Korky, that you and Winnie are colour coordinated for this.
Purple and blue. Yeah. Absolutely.
I don't know what I've got going on. It's some kind of well, it's kind of like the sand on that side, the sea in the middle, and the dark sky over there. I think that's kind of what I've got going on. And lots of cats, of course, because we love cats. So yes, Korky and I are here with you today because we are writing a book and illustrating a book together called Rolled Off the Tongue. And there's a little clue in the title as to what it is about. It's about storytelling. It's about stories and storytelling, helping you to listen and read amazing stories, but not just any stories. These are the same stories that were heard by a young lad who you may have heard of as well, called what was his name again? Roald Dahl. Anybody here heard of Roald Dahl? Yeah, I'm getting a few nods from which is quite impressive given that people's cameras are off. I'm getting a few high fives and thumbs up as well here in the Zoom room at the World Storytelling Cafe. Just a reminder as well, if you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube, head to worldstorytellingcafe.com, click on Join Story, and you can be right here in the Zoom room with the magnificent Korky Paul and myself right now. This is a book that I am so excited about because the stories in here are stories that have been around for ages, but they inspired some of today's most famous tales. You've probably heard of stories like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, yeah? And the BFG, that's quite a big one. And Matilda as well. These are all amazing, fantastic stories. Some of them were made into films quite recently. And Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is going to be having a really big anniversary soon. I think is it coming up to be 50? Is that right? Is it 50 years since something was published? Maybe it's 40.
It's 50, I think it is 50, yeah.
certainly been around for a very long time. It was Roald Dahl's first really big and successful book, although he did write James and the Giant Peach before that, of course. So he's written loads of stories that have delighted children all around the world. But there are two secrets about Roald Dahl that maybe you didn't know. The first one is that there was a time when he was exactly the same size as you. I say that with all confidence, whether you're watching this here in the Zoom room with us or whether you are on Facebook, YouTube, worldstorytellingcafe.com, wherever you are. I say that with all confidence because Roald Dahl was huge. He was 6'6", which means that at some point in his life, he would have been exactly the same height as you. And when he was the height you were at, maybe in the first third or quarter of your life, he absolutely loved stories. And it was the fact that he loved stories that he was able to go on and live such an amazing life, not just writing all of these incredible books, but becoming a spy, becoming a medical inventor, becoming a fantastic parent as well. His children went on to do amazing things as well. They would get awards from the Queen for looking after art and more medical inventions, all because right in the early days, Roald loved stories so much he wanted to go out and live one. And what stories did he hear? Well, many of those are the stories you'll find in Korky and my new book, Roald Off the Tongue. Would you like to hear one of the stories that is going to be in the book? We are starting to see nodding heads again from the switched off cameras and thumbs up. Oh, hearts as well. We're getting hearts. We've got lots of folks in here who are giving us thumbs up. Remember, if you want to join in the storytelling, join in with us, go to worldstorytellingcafe.com, click on the little button that says join story, and you'll be able to come in right here. Before I start telling the story though, like we said, we are launching this book today. We are going to be writing this book through a Kickstarter campaign. You can actually help us to get this book written, and you can have a part in that process. You can see all of our development materials. You can join us on calls like this as we test some of the material. And most importantly of all, you can help us to have the focus and the time that we need to get this book finished. We can't actually take any money from you today. We don't want to take any money from you today. Instead, what we've got is a mailing list for you to sign up to so that you can find out more about when the Kickstarter goes live. And if you jump onto that mailing list, then you will be entered into a prize draw to win the art that Korky is about to be painting right now. You're not going to get it straight away because right now Korky's in Greece, lovely warm Greece. You can kind of tell that from the perspiration that's evaporating off his head right now. You're looking very shiny, Korky. But as soon as Korky is back in the autumn, somebody who signs up to our mailing list today is going to be getting through the post that piece of art. And don't worry if you're already on a mailing list. This is a special mailing list we've set up just for today, just for Roald Off the Tongue. Now I'm going to have to pop it into the Zoom chat here, which I'll be doing with a little typey thing in front of me. And I'm really hoping that somebody else will be able to take it and put it in all of the other places it needs to go. But I will spell it out for you as well. So it's ROT, which is ROTT. That stands for Rolled Off the Tongue. And that is .mailchimp.sites, because that's where our mailing list is, .com. So that has now gone into the Zoom chat. I'm hoping you folks here will start spreading that around in all of the places it needs to go, so that we can get lots and lots of people subscribing to that mailing list. The more people we have on, oh, actually, I've managed to send that to Just one person. Hold on. Sorry, everybody else. There we go. There we go. That is now to everybody in the Zoom room. If you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, worldstorytellingcafe.com, remember, if you go to worldstorytellingcafe.com and click join story, you can be right here with Korky and me right now. Or you can go to rot.mailchimpsites.com, sign up for the mailing list to hear about our Kickstarter, and enter this competition to win Korky's amazing art. But do you want to hear a story? I said, do you want to hear a story? I tell you what, take your microphones off, because I think everybody wants to hear you. Do you want to hear a story?
Yay bo, yes!
You can tell who are the Leos among our crowd, can't you? Well, the story I would like to share with you today is a story that comes from the same town where Roald Dahl lived for most of his life, a little town in Buckinghamshire called Great Missenden. And right in the middle of this town, there was a little house with a little old lady inside. And she was the grumpiest woman you can possibly imagine. Now, I know some of you will be looking at women in the house around you right now and thinking, no, don't think anything can be more grumpy than that. But I promise you, this is the grumpiest woman who has ever lived. She would always go around with a yellow raincoat on, even if she was indoors, because whenever she went out, the skies turned grey and she would get rained on. But she was so mean and grumpy and horrible, she didn't like getting any help from anybody. So if she got a leak in her roof, she wouldn't call a builder to come and fix it. So the rain would end up coming in and she would just deal with it. So she would always have her raincoat on for when the rain came in through her roof. It would be exactly the same if a pipe burst. She wouldn't get a plumber in to fix it because she just didn't like people. So she would be walking around in massive growing puddles of water just because she couldn't stand people. It would be exactly the same, actually, if anything in her house broke. Some of the furniture, maybe the oven. She wouldn't get anybody in to help her. And that's why there wasn't actually that much stuff in her house. The kitchen she looked after, but the rest of the house, it was just falling to pieces. And she would be there in her kitchen every day with her yellow coat on and her purple rain hat as well to stop the drips coming down from the broken roof, baking cakes. She absolutely loved baking cakes. I think these were some of the most delicious smelling cakes in existence. I would say they were some of the most delicious tasting cakes in existence, but, well, I never got the chance to taste them because, of course, she didn't want to share them with anybody. She made these cakes all for herself. Can you imagine eating nothing but cakes all day? How would that make you feel? I'm getting shocked faces, I'm getting smiley faces. But really, imagine this now, having maybe some scones for breakfast, and then some cupcakes for afternoon tea, and then a massive 3-tiered fruit cake for your main meal, followed by a chocolate cake for your dessert. Could you really do that every single day? Seeing some people nodding and smiling. But it probably would start to take its toll on you. I mean, for one thing, this lady didn't have all that many teeth. You can see in the picture that Korky's drawn there, she's got just a couple of teeth that are poking out at a funny angle, really, hasn't she? And she's got a bit of a low hanging jaw that's poking out. That's what happens when you start to lose your teeth. Your gums go all over the place. And of course, this just made her even more grumpy because she had lots of aches and pains from her jaw. You don't get as many vitamins and minerals from cakes either, so she had lots of other pains all over her body, and this just made her even more grumpy. She didn't have any of the lovely vegetables that your mums and dads force down your neck to make sure that you have a nice, healthy life. Instead, she was just a complete glutton, is probably the best way to put it. She loved making cakes, and this meant that she had to go out every so often. She had to go out to the shops to buy the ingredients for her cake, and this meant that she would meet other people as well. And if ever she met somebody in the street, she would say something along the lines of, "Go away!" because she wouldn't want anybody near her. She would get to the doors of the supermarket, which she had to go through, and she would say something like, "Out of my way, coming through!" And then she would grab hold of someone else's basket probably and start swinging it around the shop as she grabbed all of the items off the shelf that she needed to throw into it. And then she would get to the checkout assistant, she would swipe it all through, and sometimes she would walk off without paying, knowing that if the security guard or the shop assistant tried to stop her, she would just turn around and say, "What?" and they would run away. This was such a long time ago as well that there weren't really many police or anything like that, so they couldn't exactly have someone chasing after her, and they didn't really want to either, because again, she was very, very grumpy. Well, at the start of this story, there was a huge storm, like the kind that those of you here in England might have been experiencing. We've been having lots of flash storms recently, haven't we? This was a torrent of rain coming down through all of the patches in this lady's roof. And as she was making her cake, as she was putting the finishing touches to the bottom tier, the biggest tier, the one with all of the finest decorations, she heard something that she wasn't very used to hearing. She heard a knock at the door. Now, there's a little bit of a storyteller tradition that I'm going to need everybody who is here in the Zoom room to help out with. If you are not watching in the Zoom room, you are very welcome to join in with this wherever you are, be it YouTube, Facebook, worldstorytellingcafe.com. But if you can, get to worldstorytellingcafe.com, click on the little join story button, and you'll be right in here with Korky and me so that you can ask questions in a little bit about the book that we're making together. But those of you who are here already, I'm going to need to ask you, when I say there was a knock at the door, to unmute yourselves and give me 3 loud knocks. This is a really deep-rooted storytelling tradition that we don't want to lose, even if we are online. So, are you able to do that? Again, I'm getting nods from the static images in front of me. So, here we go. This woman heard something she wasn't very used to. She heard a knock at the door. What a strange knock it was. Kind of started deep and then got lighter as it went on. And the lady decided that she would at least go to investigate. She went through her miserable lounge with all of the broken, tatty furniture and the water coming down from the ceiling and from all of the pipes. And she opened up the front door to see there in front of her was a man who looked like a beggar. His clothes were a little bit big for him and very tatty and worn and dirty, and he was absolutely soaked in the rain. And before the woman could say anything, with the shock of seeing this man at her doorstep, the man said to her, "Please, could I come in and take some shelter?" What do you think this woman, this particular woman, is going to say? Yeah, I don't think that she would say yes either. But then, just before her mouth opened, she had a little thought inside of her mind. She realized that if she did turn this man away now, there was a very big chance that he would go down to the end of the road and die. And if he did that, well, soon there would be even more knocks on the door. There would be the people coming to find out what happened. There would be the doctor coming to ask her for water. And then maybe there would be the local constabulary coming around to find out why she hadn't let him into her house, and then she would get in trouble. There would be lots of people crying for her to go to jail, and she would be taken out from her comfy home. She wouldn't be able to eat her cakes anymore, and this was starting to turn into a very scary thought. So the woman decided on this one occasion she would say, "All right, you can come in, but you stay on that chair over there. You don't go anywhere else. You stay right there and don't die." So the man very gratefully went into her living room and went over and sat on that little chair. And while he sat on the chair, the woman went back over to her kitchen to finish making her tea. And as she opened the kitchen door, the smells that drifted in from the kitchen. Remember how delightfully smelling these cakes were. All of those gorgeous smells. The chocolate and the cooked fruit and the sponge and the sugar and the treacles. And I can see some of your mouths watering. Careful, because water and electricity doesn't mix. And if you're holding onto a mobile phone there, Sue, that could be very dangerous. She was letting all of these smells out into the lounge so they could float right up to the nose of that beggar man. And as soon as he sniffed them, he said to her, "Oh, dear lady, I am so famished, and it smells like you are baking something delicious. Please, could I have a bite? You would be saving my life." Now, again, what do you think this particular woman is going to say to that? Yeah, I think once again, there would be that tiny little voice in the back of her head saying, if she didn't, he could die. And if he died, there would be more knocks at the door. There would be people coming to find out where this man had gone. They'd be coming to maybe get some water to try and revive him. And when they realized that he actually was dead, they would be getting the constabulary to come and grab her and take her away to jail so she couldn't enjoy her cakes anymore. And she couldn't let that happen. Plus, there was also the fact that if no one came to collect him, well, she would have someone dead in her lounge, and that would make a really horrible smell, which would probably eventually override all of the lovely smells from the cakes. So she decided, on this one occasion, she would give him a little bit of cake. So she went into the kitchen and slammed the door behind her. And she looked down at this cake that she had been baking. A nice, huge, delicious cake. Imagine the nicest cake you've ever had. Make it 10 times more delicious. And then look at it in front of you, because that's what she was looking at. She didn't really want to give him a slice of this at all. And she also knew that if she gave him a teeny tiny slice, well, then he might go away and start telling everybody how much of a miser she was. And, well, then she might have more knocks at the door, people coming to tell her that she was too selfish to live, and maybe they would take her away to jail and she would be thrown away and she would never get to enjoy any more cakes ever again. So she thought for a moment, and she came up with a cunning plan. She cut the thinnest of slices that she could from that cake, the thinnest of slices. And then she began to pat it. And pat it, and pat it, and squeeze it, and squish it, and pat it, until it was the shape of just a single cupcake. That way it wouldn't look as if he was having a teeny tiny piece of a big cake. It would look as if he was getting a whole little cake. So he couldn't complain at that, could he? It seemed to her like the perfect idea. And you can help with this, actually. You can help her to get patting and squishing and squishing and patting and squeezing that slice down. But as she patted and squeezed, something strange began to happen. Because as she patted and squeezed, the new cake that she was making got bigger and bigger and bigger, until it was exactly the same size as a big cake. The woman looked at her hands and realized she had magic hands. Magic hands that could take a teeny tiny little slice of cake and make it into a huge cake. Oh, this was going to save her life. She would never ever have to go to the shops again. She would just have to cut off little slithers of this cake and she would have a big cake that she could enjoy 3, maybe even 4 times a day. She was so happy, probably the happiest she had ever been in her life. But then she remembered the beggar next door. He didn't deserve to have a big cake like this. He was just a beggar who had had the audacity to knock at her door. So she cut off a thin slice, the thinnest of slices she could manage, and she took that slice and began to pat and squeeze and pat and squish and pat and squeeze, as I can see some of you doing as well, patting and squishing and squeezing until it was the shape of just one cupcake. Except as she patted and squeezed, you know what's happening, don't you? It was getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until it was the size of a whole huge cake. She was amazed at her magical power, but also a little bit annoyed, because she didn't actually want to have a huge cake for the beggar next door. She only wanted to give him a teeny tiny little slice. He didn't deserve to have a big cake. So clearly she needed to turn off the magic in her hands. She thought really hard. This is what I know some of you look like when you're thinking really hard. Noah, I think this is what you look like when you're thinking really hard. To make sure that her hands weren't magic anymore. And then she cut off a very thin slither of the cake and she took it out and she began to pat and squeeze and squeeze and pat and squeeze, which you can do too. But as she patted and squeezed, you know what's coming. It got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until it was the size of any old big cake. It hadn't worked. She hadn't been able to think her magic off. But that beggar next door, he didn't deserve to have a huge cake. She had to do something to stop the magic. Of course, she knew exactly what she needed. She needed her oven gloves. If she put some gloves on, then the magic wouldn't transfer from her hands to the slice of cake. So from her raincoat, she took out 2 yellow gloves. Then she took a very teeny slice of that cake, the thinnest slice that she could manage. And again, she began to pat and squeeze and squeeze and pat and pat and squeeze. But as she patted and squeezed, it got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until it was the size of any old normal cake. Clearly, the gloves weren't working. And that might be because I haven't been 100% honest with you folks. I'm so sorry. This is what we storytellers do sometimes. Babasi, you're a storyteller as well. You can vouch for me here, can't you? Sometimes the lies just slip out, don't they? It's not even that it's a lie. It's more that, well, I was just telling you a different side of the truth. You see, that beggar man who had come to knock at the door of this little grumpy lady, well, he wasn't actually a beggar at all. He was, in fact, an angel in disguise. He had been sent to her house just to check and see if there was any goodness in her heart. And when he got there, he found, well, there wasn't a single scrap of goodness. She had let him into her house, but not because she cared about him, because she only cared about herself and not wanting people to knock at the door. She hadn't gone to make a cake for him because of wanting to feed his hunger. She had just done that because she didn't want him to die in her house. And now, even though she thought she was making these giant cakes, even then, she wasn't ready to give him a big portion. She wanted to give him the smallest portion that she could. So this angel had actually cast a spell onto this grumpy woman. A spell that didn't give her the magic power to make bigger and bigger cakes, but was actually making her smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. So the grumpy woman thought that the cakes were getting bigger, when in actual fact, she was getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And she kept on going until she was so small, you can barely see her in the picture that Korky's drawn there, can you? So very small that she was the same size as a slug. And in fact, that is exactly how the angel left her, a little slug right there in that kitchen. And that slug eventually slipped out from that house. She couldn't get any attention in the supermarket anymore, so she went to live in one of the woods right there in Great Missenden in Buckinghamshire, a wood called Angling Spring Wood, which is the wood right next to where Roald Dahl used to live. And if you go to that wood, if you ever manage to get here to the UK, go to Buckinghamshire, go to Great Missenden and take a walk through Angling Spring Wood, you can actually still see those little yellow slugs with the purple hats on, because that is the only place, or one of the only places in the whole of the UK, in fact, I think in the whole of the world, where you can find that slug. So there you go. That is how that grumpy woman got to be a slug. That is a story from right next door to where Roald Dahl used to live. I can't believe that he would have gone his whole life without hearing that story, not living in such close proximity to the very woods where that woman is still slithering around today. And I wonder if those of you who have come and joined us here in the Zoom room can think about which of Roald Dahl's stories may have been influenced by that one. If you're not watching on the Zoom, you can get here by going to worldstorytellingcafe.com and clicking on the little join story button, and you can pop in here, take your microphone off, and or put it in the chat if you prefer, and just let us know which of Roald Dahl's stories do you think could have had, I don't know, some cake as a theme, some giant food, or some creatures that are maybe small, maybe big. James and the Giant Peach has got lots of critters in it who are made really, really large. And that's sort of what happens to the woman in this story, isn't it? From one point of view. That's a very good suggestion there. Was that Adela making that suggestion? Anyone want to take their microphone off and talk to us? Or anyone else want to pop it in the chat? It's all right, folks. Don't be shy.
We're left speechless. Wait, I take that back. I'm never speechless.
Of course you're not, Babasi.
However, I must confess, this is the first time I made the correlation between the author, the movies, and the stories. So now you've given me another author to go read. Thank you very much.
You didn't know that Roald Dahl was the man behind the BFG, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Matilda, and all of that?
No, you know how you can see something every day and you take it as background, it becomes background to you? I just made the conscious connection between all of this.
Well,
I've been enjoying all of this, but I hadn't joined all the dots.
I'm glad you've done that, Babasi, because what we're doing here with our book, Rolled Off the Tongue, is we are joining those dots. We are looking at some of the folklore that has been around places like Norway, where Roald Dahl's mother came from, and his father as well as quite a lot of the folklore from right here in the UK, and I think as well a little bit of folklore from outside of those places, which Roald experienced from listening to bedtime stories from his mum, listening to stories from his teachers, and that clearly stayed with him. And you can see that Korky is joining dots as well in another way, because Korky looks around him, sees magnificent detail in the world around him, and does incredible stuff with it, puts his own visual style on it. What a brilliant grumpy woman you have there. Can we get a little bit closer to it, Korky? Would that be all right?
Yeah, sure.
Go on. Wow.
Yeah.
That incredible.
Wow. It's a quick sketch, you know, it's a sort of prepared sketch, as it were.
A quick sketch.
You do a lot more to get it right, you know.
I think that is way better than any of my quick sketches would look. And it is. It's
well, that was fun. I enjoyed that. Yeah. It's a good story.
Isn't it though? It's a fantastic story, and I've told this story in loads of places. One of the first places I think I told it was Greenbelt Festival in Cheltenham, and it's actually a story that is all over the world. There's a Norwegian version of it, which Roald may have heard from his mum, where the woman gets so small she ends up as a woodpecker. Don't know if any other storytellers here have heard that one. And there's an English version of it as well, where she gets really small and ends up as a squirrel, which makes a lot of sense to me, because if you ever look at a squirrel, they're doing this with their hands, aren't they, with their nuts? And that's kind of like what the woman is doing when she's patting and squeezing and patting and squeezing. So she kind of didn't get out of that movement. But I love the version that comes from Roald Dahl's Town of Great Missenden, because she's got that iconic yellow raincoat and purple hat that you've drawn there to keep her nice and dry. But you can also see, this is the detail that Korky goes to, everybody. Look at her nose. Look at how ill she looks. Not only is she grumpy, but she's beset with ailments because all she ever eats is cake. That's exactly what your nose would look like if you did manage to eat loads of cakes, Sue. There are a few people here who are saying that they would love to eat cake all day, every day, but your nose would end up big and bulbous and red like that. Is that what you really, really want?
Sorry, I've got a friend of mine is like promoting their book, so I've got them.
Oh, we have other voices joining us in the call right now. But thanks for reminding us. We are in the middle of talking about Rolled Off the Tongue, a book that Korky and I are putting together, which has already been inspiring young readers to read and struggling readers to read as well, struggling writers to write. And with the help of Korky's magnificent art there, we're hoping it will also be encouraging some to draw too. Now, we are going to be asking for your help to get this book complete, and to do that we are launching a Kickstarter, but we're not doing that today. We're not asking for any money from you today. What we are asking you to do is to join a special mailing list for our Kickstarter, and I'm now going to go and share this link in a few other places, and while I'm doing that, I'm going to leave you with Korky to answer some of your questions, because I know that there are people here who want to ask questions about Korky's background, his art, and how he does his amazing magical quick sketches. So I'll just leave you with Korky while I go and drop that link in a few places. Ali, I think you are there. You're our elf for today. Would you mind taking the spotlight off me just for a moment so that I don't distract people sitting here tapping?
Oh, okay.
Thank you very much. Korky Paul, everyone.
Hey, Korky, how are you today?
I'm good.
I just want to say that you and Chip together are proof that the sum is greater than the whole. Because you are a great illustrative storyteller, and he is a great oral storyteller, and I'm enraptured with the chemistry between the two of you. I just think you are greater than great.
Well, yeah. Well, thank you. I mean, it's funny doing this because it's just quick sketches. The first thing that comes into your head because it's live. You know, I've naturally do a number of sketches like this and then refine it before I decided on how she's going to look.
But I'm amazed because when I draw stick figures, they look like they need an ambulance. So you know, a quick sketch. If this is an example of your art when you're doing it quickly live, I just would love to see examples of your other art when you felt that.
Just Google my name. Just Google my name and you'll see. I mean, this is some of the work I do.
Awesome.
This is Winnie the Witch. So, I mean, it's, anyway, it's a nice winter scene.
Ooh, we need that right now.
So are there any other questions?
Yeah, Korky and Chip, if you get me something together, I get quite a lot of traffic on my website, and I'll put a page on my website for you.
Lovely. What's your name?
I'm Sue. I'm Chip's cousin.
All right. Okay. Where do you live? Not in Cambridge.
I'm Nottingham.
Oh, yeah, Nottingham. Okay, good.
Yeah,
nice.
but if you, I've got to go now. But if you both get me something together and send it across, then I'll get a page added to the website because I get a lot of traffic through that, and then hopefully we can kickstart it that way as well.
I'll tell Chip. Good. Thank you.
Okay. All right then, guys. I've got to go. See you soon. Bye. That was awesome, by the way. Bye.
Thank you.
Oh, bye, cousin Sue. Thank you for joining us.
Speak soon. Speak
later. Did you hear that, Chip? You heard that?
I did hear that, yes.
Okay, good.
Hi, Korky. Can we ask you a question, please?
Of course you can.
Your accent is really beautiful. Are you South African?
I was actually born in Zimbabwe, but I grew up in South Africa. Yeah, I went to school there.
So how did you tell us a bit about your background? That's fascinating.
Well, I grew up in South Africa, and then it got a little bit hectic there with the apartheid. And I fled for Europe. and I landed up in England and Greece first, and I fell in love with Greece, and I now live here for part of the year, and part of the year in Oxford in England. Yeah. So I have a studio here, and I do lots of work here, and lots of work in England. Well, I don't work so hard here, because it's a little bit more relaxed. Yeah, out here.
Sure.
You know, in the summer, do a lot of swimming and that sort of thing. Yeah, but I do work.
So maybe you could bring in.
Like, where are you from now? Where are you based?
We're in England, although
Okay.
right now we're in Lanzarote.
Okay, on holiday.
Hence why it's looking a bit warmer than.
Yeah, no, that's
And-
very
and
warm.
less
No,
stormy.
we're experiencing a serious heat wave, which is quite dangerous for lots of elderly
Yeah.
people. It's really, it's not pleasant at all. So it's about 35 degrees right now. It's nearly 9 o'clock at night. So it's it's crazy stuff. So are you familiar with the Winnie books? Hello.
Yep.
Oh, you are. Yeah, you're familiar.
Yeah, yeah.
So have you got?
Of course we are.
You got children? You got children?
Have we
How
got?
old are your
This is
kids?
my daughter.
Okay, I
So
can't
she's
see.
10. We read Winnie.
I can't.
We read
I
Winnie
didn't-
together when she was little.
Okay, how old is she now?
10. 10.
10. Yeah, you're
10.
still
Yeah.
reading Winnie. You never too old not to read Winnie. Good.
Still enjoying
Good. So you haven't
stories.
read at school.
You're never too old
yeah.
to enjoy a good
Any other
story.
questions?
Never too old. Ali, would you mind popping
Exactly.
me back on Spotlight so that I can join in with Korky here?
Is there any
So,
other,
Korky,
are there
you
any other
can't-
questions?
You can't see us?
No.
Oh,
No,
okay.
I can't see. No. Are there any other questions? Because there's one
there
from
you go.
Tracy.
I don't know if you could see that, Korky, but
Yeah,
we've had
Tracy to everyone. Yeah. What did she say?
Tracy saying, I'm 56 and I still read Winnie.
Excellent. Good.
Fantastic.
Well, when people ask me what age group is Winnie for, I say it's sort of 3 to 90. Sort of covers the whole range.
Well,
Right,
we've
so
got
this
a
is
question
from
from
Sarah.
William. Oh, yes. It's which is your favourite Winnie and Wilbur story?
Winnie in Space. Love Winnie in Space.
Oh, really?
I'd love to have been an astronaut, but there wasn't much work for astronauts in South Africa when I was young. But I've always kind of dreamt of space, and I love the drawings that I did. They would, sometimes you do a book and the drawings, they're great, but you always think it could have been better. But for me, Winnie in Space, each drawing was exactly as I wanted it to be. It was perfect. Yeah, so that's my favorite. I
Do you want to know
especially
what my
like the one
favourite
where
is?
she's climbing out of her spaceship and she's surrounded by planets.
I
That's
love
what
the rabbits that eat the spaceship.
Oh yeah, the best space rabbits.
They're
Yeah.
brilliant.
Eat metal.
And the detail that goes into the spaceship made of all of their junk.
Yeah.
Ali is our World Storytelling Cafe elf. I'm hoping he's going to put me back on Spotlight any moment now, so that Korky and I are both here,
Okay.
and you're not getting a disembodied voice. There I am. Hello.
Yeah. Good.
My favourite one, Korky, by the way, is the broomstick one.
Okay.
Where she is trying to find an alternative to a broomstick to ride.
Yeah.
Again, the amount of detail that goes into every single
All those machines.
stage of her.
Listen, I'm just gonna flick some lights on because it's 9 o'clock.
that's
It's getting dark now.
Oh, there we go. That was really
That is-
quick. Magic. Well, when you have worked with Winnie for so long, you end up getting a little bit of magic yourself, don't you, Korky?
And these lights here. That's it. Perfect. Good. That's better.
Even better.
Yeah.
So
Okay, are there any more questions? Because we're coming to the end of our time now, aren't we?
Oh,
yeah, we're coming-
Question: How?
Oh.
You may have already answered this, but to Chip and Korky, And by the way, Korky, bad pun warning. I think you have a Korky personality. Don't lose it. What inspired you to become the storytellers you are? Because Korky, you are a storyteller through the illustrative arts. So what inspired you? When did you know you were a storyteller? That's to both of you.
Okay, well, so you go first, Chip.
All right. Well, I have been listening to stories since as long as I can remember, enjoying the stories that my mum and my dad told me, and I would write and share stories, make up stories myself. I've just always been surrounded by stories, and seeing the joy that you share with others when you're telling a story, and also getting the feel back when you are in front of people and sharing stories, that absolutely locked me into being a storyteller the moment I first gave it a go. So yeah, I'm not going back now.
Well, I've always loved drawing. I've always drawn, even when I was a kid growing up in Zimbabwe. We would have to go have a little siesta because it was very hot in the day. So when we start school very early and finish sort of midday, noon time, we'd come home, have some lunch, and we'd have to have a little sleep, or 40 winks as my mum called them. And I would sit in my room drawing away, just, doing drawings. And I love cartooning. I love distorting things. And I remember when I was a teenager, I was really doing these mad cartoons, and I had a girlfriend who said to me, "Can't you ever draw properly?" What's drawing properly? So I've been lucky. I mean, I studied fine arts and then got a job in advertising, which was fun.
Oh, yeah.
But I moved out of that and started illustrating books. And that was about 35 years ago. So, yeah, amazing.
I'm glad you mentioned advertising.
Amazing.
I had a comic book group when I was teaching junior high, and one of the parents asked me to dissuade her very talented son from drawing. And the example I used for her about him and his skill was the illustrative arts. I asked her to look at the magazines and newspapers. I said, all those things that are being drawn are drawn by an individual, and they make
Marvel
a good living.
Comics, Marvel. I love Marvel.
Oh, Marvel, yes. I cut my teeth on DC, but Marvel Comics are great. And just before I try to be quiet again, Chip, I can't spare you. I can't spare you from the puns. So this is a bad pun, but if I had to have a
personality,
yes. No. If I had to have a chip on my shoulders, it would have to be you.
Oh, telling stories in your ear all day, I hope.
Yes. Okay, I'm going to try to be quiet.
That's exactly what I want to be. Thank you so much, Babasi. We are going to have to wrap up now, and I hope that just before we can have the draw for the competition. People who have been signing up to the mailing list. We might have a little voice come and tell me any moment now who has won. That would be cool, wouldn't it? If we don't, then we will let you all know sometime soon. But just to remind you all, the reason Korky and I have been here is because we are launching a brand new book together, which is full of our inspiration, and it's there to inspire you in exactly the same way that Roald was inspired. Oh, and I've just had a plane fly into the room. There we go. Which has had a name on it. This has been drawn at random from people who have been signing up to the mailing list.
Recording's in progress. Pardon?
During
that's old school technology.
I've seen most things happen. You wouldn't believe what I've seen happen.
John, could you pop yourself on mute for a moment?
Sorry, mate.
Thank you very much.
I
Oh, there he goes. We have just had a delivery of to let me know who has won the prize for today, and so getting the artwork from Korky, that magnificent lady that he's drawn there. We have, I don't know if you can see that very well, but that is the name Sarah King. Someone who has signed up to our mainly. I can actually see the name Sarah King right here in the Zoom with us. So Sarah, I hope you are still with us and listening, because you are going to be getting a copy of that artwork that Korky has got right there.
Oh, she's getting the original. She's not getting a copy, Chip. She's getting the original.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, you are getting the original. Piece of art that is on Korky's canvas right there. So thank you ever so much for subscribing to that mailing list. Again, folks, please do help us get this book to a reality. The best and quickest way that you can do that is by sharing around that link that we have popped on all of our social media already. That's rot with 2 T's .mailchimpsites.com. Sign up to the mailing list. We'll let you know about the Kickstarter when it's ready, and then you can help this book become a reality. 16 stories in total in that book, all brilliantly illustrated as Korky's been doing for you here, but less quick sketches and more time gone into them, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Right, I gotta go, guys. Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you, everyone. Cheerio. Oh, we're getting smiles now and faces, happy faces. Oh, hello, William. I can see you now. Thank you for your question. Goodbye, Adela. Goodbye, Andrea.
Hey, Chip, could you tell Korky something for me? He mentioned Marvel Comics. One of my students caught a translation error in a Marvel comic. I suggested he write the editor. He did. A couple of weeks later, he came running down the hall. I didn't admonish him for that. The editor thanked him and sent him original artwork for catching the error.
Wow.
So please share that with him.
Well, I will, but I'll also say, folks, if you do actually end up supporting our Kickstarter, that's exactly the same thing that could happen with Rolled Off the Tongue with Korky and me, because that's what we want this to be. Yes, we are asking you to make a pledge to give us the time and focus to get the book written, but we also want to involve you in the journey as well, so you can have the fun of seeing the first drafts, the edited drafts, the first drafts of Korky's pictures, the drawings, and every single stage of them as they're going along. You can get all of that by joining our Kickstarter, which isn't live yet, but you can prepare to be there as soon as it goes live by signing up to our mailing list. So just again, to give you that before the stream gets cut off, because I think we're going to stop the stream to YouTube any moment soon, and we're going to hang around in here in the Zoom cafe with everybody who's made it here. So that link again is rot with 2 T's .mailchimpsites.com. Have a look at our social media if you need to. You'll find it there as well. I'm at Creator Chip and at Storyteller Chip on Facebook. And I think you'll know that Korky Paul is at Korky Paul everywhere, because he's been around for longer than me. He was able to get his name perfectly right from the start. Thank you ever so much again for joining us. If you've been joining us through YouTube or Facebook or worldstorytellingcafe.com, this is your last chance to get onto worldstorytellingcafe.com. Click the little join story button if you want to be here in the Zoom room and have one extra final little chat with us. But otherwise, we'll say goodbye to those of you on the stream. I think that stream is going to disappear any moment now. Am I right, Ali?
Am I allowed to interfere? Are you finishing, Chip?
Oh, I see. Of course, it can't finish yet because John's got to come on and make the announcement of what's coming up next.
Children, I am live at this moment. I'm just going to show you these hooligans. These hooligans.
Ali, I think you need to put the spotlight on John. Can you put the spotlight on John?
Shush. Hooligans! I need to make this announcement.
Ali, quickly, put the spotlight on John.
Right. So, coming up on Sunday, there is a worldwide story round at 6 o'clock on Sunday. Everyone is welcome to come on that and tell a story, young or old. On Tuesday, at 5 o'clock, our young tellers. After that, I haven't the faintest idea what's happening. Chip, I apologize for not announcing you this one, but life has fallen apart in this field that I'm on because there are thousands of young people running around causing chaos and their parents aren't much better. But for now, good night, everyone. And I hand back to you to Chip. Thank you. Goodbye. See you next week.
John.
Bye.
So in case you didn't catch that, that was what's coming up in the worldstorytellingcafe.com. I think it was Sunday that there's going to be the open telling where anyone can come along and tell. Was I right?
Yes.
Yep. Fantastic. Thanks very much for...
and then on Tuesday, 18 and younger, you have to be 18 or younger, and that's when our youth tell stories, and it's phenomenal. If you can make it, please do. But you're going to have to adjust the time because it's 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I'm not quite sure what that is British time. But that's what they do on Tuesday.
So there you go. That's what the announcement was from John. If you didn't
yes.
that. It's going to be Sunday for open telling, and then Tuesday 18s and under for telling.
Yes.
Okay.
And they're phenomenal. They're phenomenal. You would really enjoy them.
I have. They've been absolutely fantastic. I tell you what. So let's stop the live stream now to all of those sites, if you don't mind, Ali. We'll say goodbye again to everyone on YouTube.